Are you guys hearing these latest updates coming out about Nolan Wells? So allegedly, Nolan did leave the island. And he went back to Wyatt's house for a pool party. And during that pool party, there was an altercation between Wyatt, Nolan, Evan, and somebody else. And apparently they beat Nolan to death with some sort of bar or pole. There are people that are putting out witness statements stating that they were there and they saw Nolan spitting up blood and that these boys urinated on Nolan. They are saying that Evan's mother knew about the whole thing. And allegedly, they took Nolan's body back to the water. They're saying that this is the reason why it pinged on land at that house before they found that phone. This is why that boy told his daddy that Nolan was like a brother to me. Was like a brother to me when he showed up to get his car. It's because they already knew he was gone. Is this the reason why they needed dental records? Because he was unrecognizable? This case is starting to bust wide open. And we all knew that something else happened to Nolan. Now the question is, which of the parents helped those kids? Are you guys hearing these latest updates coming out about Nolan Wells?
Right, I kept saying he left in the boat with them. He had to because he wouldn't leave his phone. And two, they cleaned the boat in the middle of the night. Why? 3, who the hell dumped his body? Because mom and dad say they went to the island. Plus, it was boats docked on the island overnight. Some people stayed there. The island is reportedly pretty small. Someone would have seen something. Them kids are hell, and so are their parents for helping covering it up. The other question is, why didn't any of the kids call the police? Everyone is an accessory to the murder for not calling an ambulance and getting him medical attention. The parents, the friends, every kid's at that party. One person said in the comments, if the new autopsy doesn't show water in his lungs and shows injuries, bruises consistent with attack, the coroner will have some serious explaining to do. That's what will make the case fall apart. That's what's going to make the case fall apart. Is the coroner investigation, the medical examination. Yup, I heard no water in his lungs. Did not drown, and it sounded like he was beat up. Dental records. And the person that pulled his body out of the water said he had bruises on his body and it was knit waterlogged. Investigate the coroner who said he drowned. White guy has probably covered up for other white guys for years. And the boat was found at the judge house. They was cleaning it, so the judge is conspiracy to murder after the fact. So the judge is a conspiracy to the murder after the fact. I hear a lot of, why was the boat not seized as evidence from the very beginning? Charge everybody involved, even the ones who knew what happened and didn't report it. Obstruction. But look at the system we are dealing with. And that would also be why they didn't also allow his parents to view his body. Willing to put money that the judge mama helped cover it up. I'm willing to bet on it that the judge mama helped cover it up. Wait, so he didn't get killed on the island? He got killed at the pool party? Oh my God, I already knew they killed him. But now it takes it to a different level. The judge is going to prison. Her husband and her child. It's a family affair now. I sure believe that boy mama, who is a judge, definitely had, something to do with it. I knew everything was going to come out in the open. I'm so mad and hurt at the same time. Nolan didn't deserve this at all. Everyone involved needs to go to prison. Not just the murder, but the cover-up, including law enforcement. Hold on. Let me see. Let me see what they got. So. Let me see. Let me see what they got, you know. I want some new details myself. You know what I mean?
Has really captured a lot of national attention after he disappeared on a 4th of July boating trip to Horn Island just off the coast of Mississippi. The United Cajun Navy joined the search efforts, and now there are questions surrounding Nolan's death this morning as the family is calling for full transparency in that investigation. Joining us this morning is Brian. Forgive me if I say your last name. Is it Trasher, Brian?
That's correct.
All right. From the United Cajun Navy. Thanks so much for your time. Take us back. How did your team first get involved in the search for Nolan?
Yeah, so again, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me live in Chicago. Love that city. So we got our first dispatch late Saturday night on July 4th. A lot of people who were hearing about the story about Nolan not coming home that night. And eventually somebody who knew his mother put us in touch with her. She gave us the rundown of what was going on. She said she was going to be going out in a boat in the next morning. We decided to get involved. We had a couple of volunteers from our Mississippi chapter willing to go out on a boat and bring a drone. They searched around the island. They searched in the water, ran a grid around the island, and didn't find anything that day. So the next morning at first light, I went up with another volunteer in an aircraft out of Gulfport. We flew all around Horn Ship, Chandelier Islands, and as we came back north after a couple hours toward Horn Island, I noticed some boats on the beach, and I could see that law enforcement was setting up a command post there, and that's when we noticed some human remains on the beach. That was Monday morning, approximately between 8:30 and 9 Central.
Obviously, you know, we mentioned that there are a lot of questions sort of surrounding this entire situation. So for you guys, what have been some of the biggest questions, some of the most even, you know, now unanswered questions, and how have the questions changed since when you guys got into this around the 4th of July versus where we are today?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question for me is that the last, or as far as eyewitnesses that I've spoken to, the last set of eyes that were on Nolan were approximately 4 o'clock on July 4th. Sometime after that, there seems to be kind of a black hole where nobody can see or account for him. Obviously, he went into the water at some point, we don't know when, and did not come out alive. And he was discovered on Monday morning, almost about a day and a half later. So obviously, there's some questions there. What's making it worse is all these, you know, internet, you know, social media clickbaiters who are just flooding social media with all kinds of fake videos, fake reports, accusations. The kids that were friends with Nolan are getting death threats. The families of those kids are getting death threats. And if you look at the parents, despite the tragedy that they're going through, I mean, they're a model for resilience. They're holding it up. They're asking people to, you know, keep it to the facts. Let's investigate. Let's do everything we can to find out what happened. They deserve to know how he died. But all the accusations and the clickbait need to stop.
Now, your organization has responded to countless search and rescue missions. How would you say that this specific one just off the coast of Mississippi compares to what you guys usually find?
Yes, I mean, just about a month ago, there was a shrimper that went off his boat, kind of in that same area near Pascagoula, Mississippi, and we found him about a week later down at the Chandelier Islands. Unfortunately, he did not survive. So as far as just the mechanics and the ops, it's about the same. But you know, with this, when you have just a bright young man who was so well liked with his whole future ahead of him, so many friends, a beautiful family. It just and then of course it's taken on a national attention, which brings a different dynamic to it. That makes it a little different. But as far as our operations, like I keep trying to tell people, we're not investigators. We're not involved in anything post the recovery, other than just trying to. If people reach out to us with information, we'll be happy to share that with authorities. But we're not law enforcement. We're not journalists. We're just a bunch of volunteers who are very good at finding missing people.
You mentioned that Nolan went into the water at some point on that day. Do you have an idea of potentially the water conditions that day, where there's the risk of a rip currents? Was it just a kind of normal sunny day? What was it like down there on the day that he kind of went into the water and never made it back out?
Yeah, so good question. There's normally a rip off that northwest tip of Horn Island. That day, from what people who told me that were there, they said that it was very, very strong. And the thing about that part of the island, it's people hang out there because it's a really nice like beach on both sides of the shallow water. But you can go from like 3 feet of water to like 20 feet of water.
Yeah, so they really trying to say that he drowned. That's what they're saying, though.
Water in a few steps. And if you get caught in that rip and you don't know that you're supposed to swim parallel to the beach or you panic, you can get sucked out very far before you even know what happened. And Nolan didn't know how to swim. Confirmed that with his mother. He was very good shape, 6'1", 180 pounds, football player. But if he panicked, if he was, had a lot of sun that day, maybe he just wasn't 100%. If he did get sucked out into that rip, it's possible that he drowned. And I don't think he went too far off because it wasn't too long when he washed up right back in the spot where he was last seen.
Brian, you touched on something that I want to kind of circle back around on, because we've heard this a lot in other sort of investigations similar to this, the concept of the social media investigators. And it kind of feels like with the rise of, I don't know, these true crime documentaries, that now everybody thinks that they can sit behind a keyboard and figure these things out. And you got people throwing out theories and people getting on, chat rooms and talking to each other about that. And that really can have an impact, a negative impact on ongoing investigations. So can you emphasize to people at home, this is not a hobby to be getting into these things and trying to figure them out for, a lot of people, you're sitting in your basement at home behind a computer. You very likely don't know anything more than anybody else does. I mean that respectfully to those people.
Sure, it's a double-edged sword because on one hand, it brings a lot of attention, which this case does need and deserve attention until the facts all come out. But on the other hand, like you said, look, we get contacted by true crime people all the time, like when we're on searches for, Sebastian Rogers in Tennessee a couple of years ago to Nancy Guthrie in Arizona earlier this year. And I will say that the true crime community, very special bunch. Okay. And a lot of them don't have any idea what they're doing. They've never gone on a search and rescue in their life, but they just follow a lot of these cases. They become obsessive compulsive on these types of cases. And they just.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay. Just seen that one.
Eight law enforcement agency ends in heartbreak. Investigators believe they found the body of 18-year-old Nolan Wells in the water after he went missing from his friends during a crowded 4th of July boat celebration at Horn Island on the Mississippi coast. The coroner said the remains matched the description of Nolan's appearance and there were no immediate signs of physical injury. Friends and family remember Wells as a standout athlete with a big heart. Nolan's mother described him as a special soul. Family and friends and I are absolutely devastated. My heart is broke for our sweet son who was always willing to cheer and uplift others, she wrote on Facebook. The Jackson County Sheriff says that no foul play suspected. He declined to elaborate on how Nolan became separated from his friends group. A member of the volunteer rescue group, United Cajun Navy, spoke to several people who were at Horn Island, and they described it as a crowded with boats and swimmers, many who had been drinking, and he said he believes that strong rip currents could have posed a risk. The family's desperate search for their teen son ends in tragedy after a water
Nolan Xavier Wells. He's the 18-year-old football.
The boys were pulling up the.
This Nolan Wells murder investigation.
Nolan Xavier Wells. He's the 18-year-old football player whose body was found after he was last seen on the 4th of July on Horns Island, which is off of Mississippi's Gulf Coast. He was hanging out with friends on a boat. Well, there are a lot of theories and speculation in terms of what may have happened out there, but here is what we know so far. His friends came back to the mainland, but he didn't. Authorities say he didn't have his cell phone with him at the time he was last seen. But then there's also this.